Good morning. Welcome back to Metropolitan Community College's International Intercultural Education virtual programming in LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. LGBTQ Pride Month is commemorated each year in the month of June to honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in New York City, when patrons and supporters of the Stonewall Inn resisted the police harassment and persecution to which LGBTQ Americans were commonly subjected. This marked the beginning of a movement to outlaw discriminatory laws and practices against LGBTQ Americans. Today, LGBTQ Pride Month celebrations are diverse and attract millions of participants around the world. In June and throughout the entire year, LGBTQIA+ Pride Month is an excellent time to learn about important people in history, read literature that features LGBTQ people, analyze heterosexism, and explore its causes and solutions. The 2021 national theme is You Are Included. Today's format involves a video recording of the chamber music theater performance, Equally Divine, the real story of the Mona Lisa, performed by the Core Ensemble. Michael Parola, executive director and percussionist, will introduce the presentation and provide a question and answer period after the video. Your microphones will be shut down during the presentation, but at any time during today's lecture, you may send your questions through the chat to moderator Barbara Velasquez. I will be sharing your questions with our speaker. Please note that the names of those who present questions will not be shared. We want to encourage everyone in the audience to participate. An online evaluation is available and the address will be listed in the chat. Please share your feedback. Michael Parola received his master's and doctorate of musical arts from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He founded the Core Ensemble in 1993 and has commissioned dozens of new chamber music trios for the unique instrumental combination of cello, piano, and percussion, with hundreds of performances and residencies across the United States and in England, Russia, Ukraine, and Australia. His recordings have been broadcast internationally and can be heard on New World, Albany, and Centaur labels. Dr. Parola has served as percussion instructor at the Herod Conservatory of Music, Florida Atlantic University, and the Conservatory of Music at Lynn University. Please welcome Dr. Michael Parola.
Thank you, Barbara. It's so nice to be back with you folks. And we visited Metro several times under the auspices of Barbara's wonderful efforts and work. And we're glad to be able to present this video performance for you here today. For those of you who may have seen our pieces before or who have possibly looked at our website or review our material, what we do is what we call chamber music theater. It's a combination of a chamber music presentation and a theatrical presentation. Our usual forces are a solo actor or actress and our trio of cello, piano, and percussion. Now, in most of our earlier shows, on almost all of our earlier shows actually, we have very specific characters, usually 3 or 4, that are portrayed by the one actor or actress. In the case of this show, it goes off into a very unusual format for us, in that we are going to take a pretty deep dive further back into history. We are going to look at what is arguably the most famous painting in the world, the Mona Lisa, arguably one of the most famous, if not the most famous painter in the world, Leonardo da Vinci. And we're going to explore it from the idea that Leonardo was perhaps the greatest genius who ever lived, and he was gay, and he was persecuted for being gay. And the Mona Lisa is the closest painting to his heart. He kept it with him to the end of his life. Even he never gave it to the person who commissioned it. was always a mystery as to what was the draw of this painting. And this painting has been possessed by men over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, very famous men. And it's like, why is this painting so famous? What is with this painting? And so in 1911, at the Louvre in Paris, the painting was stolen. And for 2 years, no one knew where it was. And we are going to surmise about what happened during the 2 years that the painting was stolen. And we are going to surmise that the painting comes to life to tell us what happened, and also to tell us about the history of the painting and about the men that were so anxious to love the painting and possess the painting. And the painting comes to life, and the painting is actually a man, a gay man. And so that's the journey we're going to be on. And we're going to meet some very, very interesting people. Our actor is with us today, Kevin Paley, and he does a virtuoso job of portraying, 16 to 20 different characters within the course of this 55-minute video. The music is very wide-ranging. It ranges from pieces by composers such as Stravinsky, Poulenc, classical composers, back to music from the Renaissance. And so it's a very wide-ranging palette of music. And we're going to see what happens. The painting is stolen. The painting comes to life. And we're going to see what happens between 1911 and 1913. And I don't want to give it all away. So I think we're going to go and we're going to watch the video. It runs 55 minutes in length. And then we hope you folks will enjoy it and that you'll have some questions for us at the end. Kevin will be joining us and he can answer questions also. So please feel free to give us any questions you might have about the show, about the subject, et cetera, et cetera. So Barbara, I think that sums it up for me. If Brian's ready to go, let's go ahead and watch the video.
So thank you, audience members. Thank you, the core ensemble. We have Michael Parola, who's the executive director of the core ensemble and your percussionist, and Kevin Paley, the artist, in this presentation. I would like to get started with questions, so they're coming in. I want to encourage audience members to keep sending them to moderator Barbara Velasquez. But here's one to start with, and this goes to Kevin. How did you prepare for this role, Kevin?
Hi there, thank you for your question. Well, luckily CORE builds a really nice team to help for preparation. So I received the script well in advance. I took some nice long walks in New York City and tried to memorize as much as possible. We went down to Florida, or I went down to Florida, joined everyone there. We worked on the script for about a week. Thank the Lord, we cut it down from 23 to about, I think it was 15 good pages. And then I worked with the director for, I believe, 3 weeks. And then we performed it for the locals there. And it was rehearsing every day, just taking it very slowly, starting with the text, then exploring all the different characters, and then just working it as you would practice anything until it becomes muscle memory.
Another related question speaks of, did you study about Leonardo, the history, the Mona Lisa itself, or accents?
Yes, I did as much as possible. Thankfully, one of my really good friends from college is a dialect coach. So before I went down, we had plenty of conversations where I worked on things as much as possible. It's very hard to do the difference between Spanish and Italian. I think that's one that I'm still struggling with. So there was that help. What was the other question?
Oh, whether you explored any of the history of Leonardo or
Yes.
or any of the other characters.
I did. There's so much out there. That was part of the fascination, was this painting talks about how famous it is. And when you go to start to decode what the painting is, there's a million directions that you can go in. So I did as much research about Leonardo da Vinci and his life and all of the real people that are spoken of. Luckily, I was already a huge fan of Picasso from childhood, so that sort of came with the territory. And then beyond that, this play takes a lot of creative liberty. So it was knowing the history, knowing I sort of built for myself. I went to rehearsals with photographs of what Leonardo's studio looked like, so that when I was building those scenes with Mark, the director, looking around the room, even though we were in sort of nowhere and it was adaptable to any space, in my imagination, I knew, okay, here was the fireplace, here was the window, so I knew where my good lighting was. And so when I was having those conversations between Leonardo here and Lisa here, and then Salai there, in my mind, it became easier just drawing what each corner of the room would look like, being able to sort of pack up that space in my imagination and then unfold it. The same with the bedroom where the painting was stolen and hidden. There's pictures of that because everything is so famous. So it really was pretty easy to build all of the imagination around everything. And then to sort of, once we're in the story, just let it all be fluid and trust that there's new elements like the music, and to sort of know that what comes, comes, and what doesn't come, not to force it and things like that.
Thank you. Along that line, Michael, can you give the audience an idea of how your chamber music theater programs conceptualize and develop to the actual activity such as what we just saw?
Well, it's actually been a process that's been going on now for over 25 years. And we have a series of these pieces. I think if you go, folks, when we visited Metro, we've done at least 3 or 4 of them, or we visited with you quite a bit. So Barbara's very familiar with the work. And essentially, became an outcropping of being a chamber music group, just playing chamber music and playing unusual chamber music in that it is cello, piano, percussion. And so it was primarily on new music, concert music, that kind of stuff. And then we decided we wanted to reach a broader audience. So we decided to add a narrative in and add an actor. And it sort of just evolved that a solo actor, along with our trio, was the most economical and effective way that we could do it. For practical reasons, like when we visit with you live, we've done everything from portable stages to recital halls, just even in your situation, Barbara. And that's what we do, pretty much everywhere when we perform live. So as the solo actor, then it was multiple characters, real people, or at least based on real events and real people. And then if you see on our website, it's a commitment to diversity. It's a celebration of diversity through chamber music theater. So it became very specific, or much more specific, as we developed all of this over the course of the group had been going for a while, but the first time we did anything like this was around 1996. So that's 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago. And some of the shows that we've done for you have actually been around, like we did Of Ebony Embers, that's been around since 1999. Tres Vidas has been around since 2000. So they've become evergreens. They've really kept going. This show was unusual, as I mentioned, because of the way the subject matter was set up. And actually, it was originally just about the theft itself. And we did the show originally with a female actress. And what we decided was that we wanted to do something that would celebrate in an LGBTQ environment. And there was, of course, all of the issues about Leonardo being gay and being persecuted, and also gender fluidity issues. Kevin is very articulate in talking about that, if folks want to talk about that, and how this could, and the idea that why is this painting so famous? Why is it so famous? And wasn't it ironic that could it be that it was a painting that was both Lisa and Salai, and Leonardo kept it with him, and that all of these heterosexual men obsessed about it for 500 years, and so we thought that was an interesting kind of play on it, but it could then become a celebration of Leonardo and tie into our celebrating the LGBTQ community, etc. And that's pretty much in a I hope I haven't gone on too long, but that's pretty much what the history of it, condensed history of over 25 years, and many performances and locations, which we're very grateful that folks are still interested in the work, including this last season where we switched everything over to video, which was a whole other adventure that we could spend a great deal of time talking about. Because a year ago at this time, we had no idea what we were going to do. Everything was shut down. Nobody knew what was happening. And it was actually a major decision to do it, but it was actually an easy decision to bring all the shows onto video because we had nothing else to do. You know, we're all just sitting at home doing nothing. So, you know, that made it a little easier, but it was a big challenge, and we're very glad that it worked out the way it did.
I personally compliment the core ensemble for the professional delivery on video that you created. I have mentioned to others that when you came on campus live, we couldn't give the backdrops and the beautiful graphics that you added. We've been doing virtual since last September, and I really would say that I think your work is one of the best I've seen in virtual. It almost makes it better than being there in person because of what you've added to it, right? So, and I thank you for discussing what happened the last year. Depending on the time we have, I might go back to another related question. But a comment that I'm going to share with both Michael and Kevin, and you can respond back to it. One of the most intriguing lines was that people came to gaze at my absence. Sometimes the largest amount of attention is received when not present. Any thoughts on that?
Kevin?
Yeah, what an interesting line that Jenny wrote. There's so many hidden gems. That line for me, the first association I have with it is Kim Kardashian when she was robbed in Paris. Perhaps it's like the similarity of the location, but I think that people were more fascinated by the fact that someone that the world knows as being famous had something legitimately tangible happen to them that could happen to anyone, that sort of knocked them off their pedestal for a moment. And so what the museum discovered when the painting was stolen was that more people were going to stare at a hook on a wall than were going to look at the painting. And the painting wasn't too large to begin with anyway. So this whole hall was taken up by people gazing at the absence of it because it was a gossip piece. It became a conversation piece. And I think that like the sensationalism of that, the popular, just the majority goes with, I think what's pop culture. And at the time, Mona Lisa was pop culture. And now it exists sort of in places where we want to see the wealthy, the powerful, the famous sort of knocked off their pedestal for a moment, or to see something happen to them that could happen to us to remind us that everyone's human. In this case, it was a painting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point about the Kardashians. It's very Kardashian to create these monster crowds and famousness for staring at a blank wall. You know, talking about Kardashian level of content. I mean, that's, you know, that sort of sums it all up. But yet, you know, thousands and thousands of people went and it became a happening and it became famous. And so there you have it.
Wonderful. So there was some mention of the persecution of Leonardo da Vinci due to his status as a gay man. Do you have any more history to tell us about the persecution that he suffered?
Well, there was like essentially like a secret police in Italy at the time called the Office of the Night. And it was against the law to be a homosexual, or more so to commit the act of sodomy. So he was persecuted several times, but every single time he was let off because no one came forward to testify, because no one was a witness. So every single time he was let off, but then he fled the city because of like family shame and embarrassment that surrounded his name. So even though he was the most promising genius in town, the fact that there were rumors about him engaging in sodomy was enough to force him to flee. everything that he knew.
Which of course has tremendous contemporary resonances, and you know, and another reason why this is sort of a timeless, you know, kind of a timeless tale in terms of issues, those issues, you know.
Back to the development, Michael, I think I'd like the audience to get a sense of how long does it, like, you have an idea. You were just telling me before we got started that you have a new project in development. From the birth of, or the conception of an idea to the birth of the project and the ability to showplace it, about how long does that take? And what steps do you go through? Do you do all the writing, or do you have others?
Yeah, I do I usually come up with the ideas in terms of of what the subject matter is within a framework. We were talking about this idea of a piece about Native American women. In this case, Margot Emery, our managing director, has always had a interest in Sacagawea, and the idea that Sacagawea would be a character or be featured in this. And now we're talking about, well, how would we do this? How would we put it together? It's a brainstorming situation. To tell you the truth, Barbara, it's very easy for us to think of things to do. What's difficult is to get somebody to pay for it. And that's always the biggest challenge, is who pays. And once, if you came to me and said, I've got X number of dollars, and here it is, and I want this piece about Native American women, we could, it's research, script writing, music research, music arranging, put it together, work on it. As soon as we have the script and as soon as we have the music, be done in a month or two. But the script or the music could take several months. And usually, because of timelines with funding and all the rest of this, it could be as little as a year. It could be as many as 2 or 3 years. As a matter of fact, we're doing we have several pieces now in the pipeline that you have not been that familiar with, but a perfect example is what's going on even as we speak right now. We're doing a piece called Las Magnificas, which is about Latin American women. And 2 years ago, we did 2 scenes, Celia Cruz and Violeta Parra, the great singers. We decided we wanted to have another scene. We decided on Chavela Vargas, the great Mexican singer. Well, that script sort of went through development. Everything was suspended. And just this month, we decided that we were going to move ahead. There were people who were interested in it. We're going to book it live in September. And the script is done, the music is being arranged, and the actress and the director are rehearsing even as we speak. And the full group will get together in August, and we're going to be back out on the road in September. And so each one has its particular circumstance. And also, quite frankly, we were very fortunate to receive a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts for our programming. And once that money came in, that gave me the real, that combined with the idea that there were these presenters such as yourself, but not in this case you, but others, who were interested in doing it, that gave me the locus financially to say, we can do this, let's do it. That's how it's done. It's not unlike any production company, any kind of, thing, just much smaller scale, for sure.
And so let's say we have some budding artists in our audience who think they would like to get involved in something similar, what process do you go through to look for funders?
Oh, geez. How, we want to spend about 6 months talking about this?
Yeah.
I mean, and Kevin, cut me off properly, Kevin, about this. All right, I'm going to rely on Kevin to give me the hook here. I want you to cut me off too, Barbara, because sometimes I can be too frank about everything. Basically, it always comes down to who pays, and remember that the person who pays wants to get what they want. Now, how can you reconcile what they want with what you want to do? That's the whole game. Yes, Kevin?
I think that's exactly it. I think that's a great way to put it. I'm taking a mental note.
It reminds me of, it's like grant writing 101, right? So
right.
you
Just
have to
remember, people, I'll say this, let me cut in and say this. People think grants are giveaways. The answer is no. The person who is the foundation, whoever's doing the grants, they have parameters. They want something for what they're giving you. You must give them what they want, and it is very competitive. And quite frankly, the talent becomes molding what you, if you think you have this product and you have the product and you believe in this product, how do you get them to believe in the product so that they come across with the funding? That is most of the game. That's it, as far as I'm concerned.
So for somebody who wants to explore some of this, one of the first steps is really getting to know who the funding agencies are and what they're looking for and how they want it presented, and then you dive in.
Can I back up though and say this?
Yes.
You got to have something. What is it you're trying to do? You're not just literally going out, or are you really going to do it the other way around, which is let me create something that will fit the parameter of this one particular funder? That is usually a trap. Whenever we have done that, we have had unsatisfactory results. It has to be something that you believe in, something that has an organic conception, an organic development, and then you find the people who you find I use the old term, a discredited term, which we won't get into where it came from, but it is the truest thing, a coalition of the willing. You create a coalition of the willing. Who are they? And quite frankly, I don't care who they are, as long as they're interested and they want to be part of the coalition in a healthy way, in a happy and healthy way. That's it.
Well, we thank you for everything you both do, Kevin and Michael, to make these performances available. I really love the final comment, equally divine as God's creation. That's it's a few words and says a lot, right? We saw how the role of women was highlighted within the film, and women being as important as men. Very interesting. And then the equally divine as God's creation, pulls all sorts of entities together who have faced discrimination. So that's really beautiful. I would offer each of you an opportunity for your final comments to our audience, and then we will finish up for today.
I'll go first, and then we'll have Kevin. I just want to thank, let's everyone please extend to Barbara a sitting ovation, because she does a fantastic job and she really works hard to bring all of this to you folks. And she's been a great supporter and good friend for really a number of years, Barbara. I'm trying to think, it's at least 10 years, since the first time we visited with you. It's got to maybe even more than that. And when we get to Omaha, it's usually what's happening with Barbara Velasquez. And so it's always great. And we appreciate you very much. And thank you very much for having us. Kevin?
Well, this was my first time visiting Metropolitan of Omaha, but I just want to say thank you to you all for coming, for watching, for your questions, and just for your presence. It really means a lot to share this story. As you can see, my hair's a lot longer now. I filmed it 4 years ago, back when I identified as a cis man, and it really was the tipping point in the journey of me finding my gender fluidity and transness. So it's a very special piece, and I'm grateful to Michael for producing it and Barbara for helping to do that. So thank you all for being here. If you have any questions about gender, sex, anything like that, feel free to get my info and then we can chat. I'm always open. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much. I believe that you brought to us a theme, a story that I doubt that many imagined, right? Of course, we know who the Mona Lisa is. We know Leonardo da Vinci, we know Napoleon, but it was just all put together so masterfully, as usual. So thank you for sharing that with us.